Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Swallowed Star 2 Land of Origin based on novel. So let's start. Luo Feng looked at the envoy of the Snow Realm before him, his heart brimming with joy. This envoy of the Snow Realm truly lives up to its renowned reputation as a mechanical treasure of the Snow Realm lineage. Impressive, Luo Feng praised. Although he wasn't fond of the ancestral god of the Snow Realm, that ancient godly king, he had to admit that the ancestral god of the Snow Realm had extremely deep attainments in the great Tao of life. According to the records of his master, the mountain-sitting guest, in terms of strength, the ancestral god of the Snow Realm was roughly equal to his master. But because his cultivation was of the great Tao of life, his ability to protect himself was far stronger. Endless years have passed, and many ancient godly kings have perished. However, despite his numerous sins and many enemies, the ancestral god of the Snow Realm managed to live freely until today, which speaks volumes of his abilities. Different primeval Taos have different strengths, and the great Tao of life indeed possesses the strongest capability for survival. Luo Feng had seen the complete great Tao of life origin and understood the power of this path. Even just grasping a branch of it could dominate the land of origin. Without taking action, you are instead praising. Are you scared? Liu Yinyang, who was commanding the envoy of the Snow Realm, had no patience to wait. I want to see how strong the top eternal true gods really are. Whoosh! In an instant, the envoy of the Snow Realm pounced, and a ray of light flashed, engulfing Luo Feng. Normally, such an attack would be enough to erode away the body of an eternal true god and cut off all of its life force. However, Luo Feng simply slashed casually with his blade, and the blade light flowed like water, perfectly blocking the pounce of the envoy of the Snow Realm and slicing it to retreat backward in flight. While the envoy of the Snow Realm was flying backward from the momentum, it suddenly changed direction and increased in speed. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Turning into a blur of after-images, it continued to make consecutive pounce attacks. Luo Feng stood firm on the spot, defensively impeccable. All retreat, back to the city owner's mansion. Suddenly, an order rang out in Luo Feng's ears. The entire military formation completely transformed into a group of unpredictable flowing water, heading straight for the city owner's mansion. With the help of over 100 major formations within Huyang City, and with Luo Feng blocking the envoy of the Snow Realm, it only took a few moments for the entire formation to completely retreat back to the city owner's mansion. Brother Luo He, it's the Marquis's order to withdraw the troops. Yuewu informed through a transmission. Luo Feng understood. He had just begun to comprehend the primal chaos laws and was at his weakest as a being in the primal chaos realm. At this moment, his small universe had just begun expanding, his true god's heart had not yet transformed, his godly body and divine power had not yet undergone transformation, and he had not had enough time to grow. He hadn't had the chance to study the heritage of the primal chaos realm. Exposing his mastery of the primal chaos laws now would be the most foolish act. The Marquis Liu Yin would definitely not mind crushing Luo Feng to death. Just like Shui Yun before, in a moment of life and death, his bloodline transformed, and he grasped control over the primal chaos laws. But apart from his moves being somewhat mysterious, there was no other improvement, and he was directly slain by Luo Feng. Only when my perfect godly body of the primal chaos layer reaches its limit can I really stand my ground within the primal chaos realm, Luo Feng thought to himself. Based on what he understood, after breaking through to the primal chaos realm with an unlimited godly body, one would still need to cultivate the secret technique for a considerable period to improve all aspects without weakness. Only then could one reach the pinnacle of the primal chaos realm, equivalent to the Marquis of Zhujiang. As a perfect divine body, if I can grow to the limit, I should be close to the Marquis of Zhujiang, but still not on par with Marquis Liu Yin. As for now, daring to confront the Marquis Liu Yin would be courting death. Within the city owner's mansion, the divine power incarnation of the Marquis of Zhujiang appeared and held a banquet to entertain the core members of his army. Over 100 eternal true gods gathered within the grand hall, taking their seats in order. Luo Feng and Yuewu were seated at the first positions to the left and right below the seat of the Marquis of Zhujiang. In this skirmish, all of you have worked hard, the Marquis of Zhujiang said, but with the appearance of the envoy of the Snow Realm, even if we could barely win this battle, I'm afraid only 2 or 3/10 of the eternal true gods would survive. The eternal true gods present all agreed. Actually, they had all clearly understood the situation just now. With the envoy of the Snow Realm tying up Luo Feng, there was a chance that the army of the Marquis of Zhujiang could have been defeated in the ongoing battle. Even if they won, it would only be a Pyrrhic victory. A narrow victory would only lead to Marquis Liu Yin sending another army again. The Marquis of Zhujiang looked at his subordinates. But you are all the military force I have. There's no need for us to waste our strength against them. Luo Feng agreed. Marquis Liu Yin didn't care about the loss of life from the Heartshadow sect, but the Marquis of Zhujiang cherished his army. The 3,000 plus eternal true gods were nearly all the military force the Marquis of Zhujiang had. A war of attrition? He certainly didn't want that. To win, it must be an overwhelming victory, the Marquis of Zhujiang told them. I don't need a victory with countless deaths. Thank you, Marquis. Many of the eternal true gods were extremely moved. Luo Feng, Yuewu, and a very few others were confident they could survive the battles within the military formations. But the other eternal true gods could die at any moment. In the face of the envoy of the Snow Realm, they would perish with a single encounter. The Marquis of Zhujiang cared about their lives and didn't want them to be wasted, naturally moving these eternal true gods. Such a primal chaos overlord was indeed worth following. This ceasefire will last for quite a while, the Marquis of Zhujiang said. I will find a way to call for more reinforcements. Looking at his subordinates, including the summoned master and servant of Luo He, Yuewu, Yonghu, and others, the Marquis of Zhujiang was quite troubled. I have already invited such powerful eternal true gods, who else can I invite? Moreover, Marquis Liu Yin was actually able to invite an envoy of the Snow Realm, representing the ancestral god of the Snow Realm, willing to assist him. Marquis Zhujiang was very aware of the significance of the appearance of an envoy of the Snow Realm. An envoy of the Snow Realm, as the name suggests, represents the ancestral god of the Snow Realm to a certain extent. Without the permission of the ancestral god of the Snow Realm, that envoy would not possibly participate in battle. With one envoy of the Snow Realm, if Marquis Liu Yin is willing to pay a certain price, he may possibly invite 2, 3, or even more envoys. Marquis Zhujiang knew this. There are a total of 36 envoys of the Snow Realm. They are powerful forces mobilized within the territories under the command of the ancestral god of the Snow Realm. As for the more than 10 primal chaos overlords under his command, they joined because they valued the significant enhancement the ancestral god of the Snow Realm could provide to their survival abilities. Without sufficient reason, these beings of the primal chaos realm couldn't be mobilized. I had long heard that Marquis Liu Yin has an extremely good relationship with the ancestral god of the Snow Realm, to the point of even having his children become disciples of the ancestral god. Marquis Zhujiang shook his head. But I never imagined that the ancestral god would go so far as to help him like this. Many ancient existences would not easily intervene in the wars of other nations. But the ancestral god of the Snow Realm is notoriously violent and reckless, riddled with monstrous sins. It is not surprising he would do such a thing. Faced with an at the eternal level, I'm afraid I can't win, Marquis Zhujiang thought to himself. I must enter the fray personally. The conflict at the level of the primal chaos realm is much more brutal. Relying solely on myself isn't enough. I must seek help, Marquis Zhujiang determined in his heart. The cost of asking for help from someone of the primal chaos realm was great, but at this moment, he could no longer care about that. The reluctance to easily escalate wars is due to this reason. Once escalated, the weaker side will seek help, easily leading to multiple great battles involving those of the primal chaos realm. In the region of the primordial cosmos, Luo Feng's small universe. Rumble tilde. In the central region of the small universe, spanning 100 billion light-years in diameter, there was a special space of cosmic origin that was now collapsing, with the emergence of chaotic power inside and the substantial manifestation of the laws of primal chaos. This place was as if it were a space within the primal chaos layer. I originally constructed the small universe using the concept of the beginning of unity. What follows is natural evolution. Luo Feng's divine power incarnation stood in this space of cosmic origin, watching the surging chaotic power around him. My framework is quite perfect indeed, eventually naturally evolving into a primal chaos primeval space. The evolution of a small universe starts with its formation and framework. After that, it grows naturally. If the initial framework is somewhat defective, it'll cause the small universe to be somewhat smaller in scale. If the framework has severe defects, it might even stop evolving at a certain layer. Such cases, though rare, do occur. Those who have stepped on the law lineage to become a true god rarely reach this stage. As for those on the path of bloodline, their small universe is determined by their bloodline. Although their upper limit is not as high as that of the law lineage, they would not have fatal flaws. What's going on? This is inside Luo Feng's small universe, where countless human beings lived. Some of the universe masters and true gods became aware of changes in the small universe. The rampant demon god arrived at the original border of the small universe, only to see an endless expansion of primal chaos forming outside its edges. Primal chaos currents have appeared outside, identical to the primal chaos currents of the universe ocean. The rampant demon god exclaimed in amazement, "Is the Lord of the Galaxy's small universe expanding again?" At this moment, many true gods had also arrived outside the galaxy universe. The small universe of the ancestral god of the galaxy is expanding. A diameter of 100 billion light-years, it's growing again. The Lord of the Galaxy is becoming more and more fearsome. As the powerhouses of the human race and others from the universe ocean looked on in astonishment, the ancestral god of the galaxy Luo Feng had long been invincible in the entire primordial cosmos region. In the face of yet another enhancement of this invincible existence, the various clans' powerhouses naturally accepted it. Luo Feng, how big do you think your small universe will become this time? At this moment, Luo Feng's family had arrived outside the small universe in their boat, watching its entire transformation. Xu Xin, Luo Ping, Luo Hai, his younger brother Luo Hua, his father Luo Honghua, and his mother Gong Xinlan were all watching the changes. "It's estimated to reach 1 trillion light-years, Luo Feng said. "Last time, it reached 100 billion light-years, and then you went to brave through reincarnations," Xu Xin inquired. "How significant is this breakthrough for you?" "Very significant." Luo Feng smiled and nodded. Only by becoming a being of the primal chaos realm can one be considered to have entered the upper echelon of the land of origin. Since the number of ancient godly kings is too small, and one godly king can establish a nation, many key affairs in the land of origin are handled by beings of the primal chaos realm. Even in the two great ancient countries, beings of the primal chaos realm are quite important. In the imperial lineages like Emperor Chu's lineage of the flame-wind ancient country, beings of the primal chaos realm can barely become guest elders. With the pride of the imperial clan, being willing to call someone a guest elder indicates the status of beings of the primal chaos realm. "At least, I'm not cannon fodder anymore," Luo Feng thought silently. To the higher-ups, an eternal true god was truly nothing but cannon fodder. Under observation by the various powerhouses of the universe ocean, including his teacher, the primal chaos city lord, and Zhenyan, as well as the Thunder Lord and others, Luo Feng's small universe expanded at a terrifying speed. After 5 years had passed, the expansion of the small universe finally stopped. By then, it had already reached a full 1 trillion light-years in diameter. Such an enormous small universe, even when compared to the primordial cosmos, wasn't far off. Huyang City, the city lord's mansion, allocated a separate compound covering tens of thousands of kilometers for Luo Feng to reside in. The cultivation chamber, within the Star Tower. Luo Feng sat cross-legged, wholeheartedly sensing his true god's heart. As his miniature universe expanded to a diameter of trillions of light-years, the true god's heart connected to it grew increasingly strong and resilient, with a steady flow of primal chaos divine power pouring into the true god's heart. True god's heart, primal chaos evolution, Luo Feng thought, and primal chaos divine power surged within the true god's heart, gradually forming a space that expanded and eventually solidified into a defined primal chaotic space. For a cultivator of the law lineage's primal chaos realm, transforming a primal chaotic space was a very easy feat. Luo Feng's own primal chaotic space was broader and more stable than that of others at the same level of the primal chaos realm. Boom tilde tilde tilde. A massive amount of primal chaos divine power flooded into the godly body, causing Luo Feng's godly body to begin its metamorphosis. For my godly body to grow to its limit, it seems it will take a very long time. Luo Feng felt as if his godly body was a dried-up desert, instantly absorbing any amount of primal chaos divine power that came its way. Thankfully, my miniature universe has a very high efficiency in consuming energy and converting it into primal chaos divine power, Luo Feng mused silently. His miniature universe was the perfect form among miniature universes at his level, with an inherently high absorption and conversion rate. Furthermore, time flowed 10,081 times faster in his distant homeland compared to the land of origin, so the divine power he transformed every moment was naturally immense. If it were an ordinary primal chaos realm cultivator absorbing this divine power, in less than a day in the land of origin, their godly body could grow to its limit. But for Luo Feng's perfect divine body of the primal chaos realm, this influx of divine power caused not the slightest ripple, being silently absorbed without a trace. Divine power has become 100 times more pure. Luo Feng could feel the changes within. With 100-fold purification of divine power and great increases in physical size, coupled with an overall elevation in realm, he was indeed far stronger than he had been during his eternal true God phase. I wonder, after my godly body reaches its limit, how big the gap will be between me and Marquis Liu Yin, Luo Feng contemplated. As for the perfect divine body of the primal chaos realm, there was no record of it in the land of origin, and the strength it could attain at its limit was something Luo Feng could only guess at for now. On the surface, among the various primal chaos realm cultivators in the Sha Kingdom, there are nearly 10 who possess unlimited godly bodies. Marquis Liu Yin does not possess an unlimited godly body, yet his strength is ranked within the top 5. First, focus on cultivating secret techniques, Luo Feng decided as he felt the slow growth of his godly body, then cast aside all distractions to begin studying the secret techniques that could be cultivated at his primal chaos realm level. For normal primal chaos realm cultivators, the first secret techniques studied are always those that save one's life. Why would a godly king condescend to acknowledge the primal chaos realm? Because even a godly king cannot guarantee a complete kill of a primal chaos realm cultivator. The foremost life-saving secret technique of the primal chaos realm, reincarnation secret technique, Luo Feng studied in detail. The reincarnation secret technique uses a secret technique to protect a sliver of the true spirit for reincarnation. Upon death, a sliver of the true spirit will follow the supreme rules and naturally undergo incarnation through reincarnation. By relying on the reincarnation secret technique, there is a hope to maintain memories during reincarnation. According to the records of powerful beings who have reincarnated throughout history, whether reincarnation can retain memories, or remain conscious, depends on one's spiritual will. A godly king's will can remain fully conscious. It is already conscious in the fetal stage and possesses complete memory. Therefore, after birth, it can quickly cultivate to recover its original strength. The primal chaos pinnacle will can generally retain the complete memory within a sliver of the true spirit, but when it becomes conscious is uncertain. It may awaken during adolescence, or possibly only upon becoming a true god of void space or even an eternal true god, before gaining access to all memories. As for a weaker spiritual will, even the memories will be incomplete, and the chances of awakening are so low as to be negligible, with no awakening to past life memories in a lifetime. This also signifies the complete annihilation of the previous life. Just a hint of consciousness in the primal chaos realm is enough for reincarnation. And with many life-saving secret techniques, even godly kings cannot ensure a clean kill of a primal chaos realm cultivator. Luo Feng was well aware of this. The not-so-powerful school of the Duandong River lineage in the land of origin had the Undying River secret technique. Some more formidable and extensive lineages have even more life-saving secret techniques. As long as one does not die instantly and can reincarnate immediately, after reincarnation, the connections to past causes are severed, becoming a new creature. From the outside, it is impossible to discern the former identity. A godly king will also establish his own domain and have many concerns, and will not easily create such a formidable enemy. This is also why godly kings show a modicum of respect to primal chaos realm cultivators. In the land of origin, occasionally there arises a genius that swiftly climbs the ranks, even some who become newly minted godly kings, Luo Feng thought, but in reality, these rising existences may well be some old geezer who has reincarnated. For example, his master, the mountain-sitting guest, had already reincarnated. Like the godly king ancestor who established the Heart Shadow sect, or the third-generation ancestor of the Duandong River lineage, all publicly known information has them as having fallen. But if they didn't die completely and a sliver of strength quietly reincarnated, keeping their identity hidden, who would know? When cornered with no way out by terrifying enemies, one can reincarnate to change identity, completely severing ties with the past. Because of the reincarnation secret technique, nearly all ancient godly kings have unlimited godly bodies, Luo Feng thought. By relying on reincarnation, one can compensate for the shortcomings of their godly body. Of course, reincarnation has some flaws, such as uncontrollable reincarnation identities and extreme vulnerability during the fetal stage and embryo, with an extremely weak soul, even if it comprehends the law of primal chaos. The strength it can exert is far less than a mere sliver of a divine power incarnation of a primal chaos realm cultivator. At this stage, it is very easy to die. Thus, those who dare to reincarnate proactively usually reach the godly king tier in terms of their realm. A godly king, at the very least, commands one branch of the origin Great Tao. With a single thought, they can form complete universal operational rules and can open up a universe of their own. Merely by relying on the complete universal operational rules, they can make the supreme laws retreat. Their survival ability and strength far surpass those of the reincarnated ones from the primal chaos realm, and their risk of reincarnation is also extremely low. I hope I never have to use this reincarnation secret technique, Luo Feng mused, as he certainly did not wish to be reincarnated. Once reincarnated, his miniature universe would perish, and countless humans within it, except for an extremely small number who could be protected and sent to the primordial ancestors' miniature universe, over 99% would be annihilated. Moreover, his divine power incarnation would also be annihilated, unable to contact his family. Nor could he observe the great Tao of life origin. The soul enslavement on Morosa would also dissipate, and Morosa would become a free sector beast. Only in a desperate situation would he choose to reincarnate. The reincarnation secret technique is not difficult, Luo Feng found, having learned the technique after spending 3 days on it. This secret technique, whose creator is unknown, has a very low level of difficulty to practice and can be learned by almost every being in the primal chaos realm. Any force with even a slight background has records of this secret technique. Primal Chaos Great Strength Diagram, World-Breaking 9 Blades, Duan Mie, Dong Hua, Lai Yuan Technique. Let's start comprehending these one by one. Luo Feng calmed his mind and began researching these secret techniques. To the south of Yu Kingdom, there is a vast lake with an island in the center. On the island stands a city, larger in scale than even Huyang City. Whoosh! The divine power incarnation of the Marquis of Zhujiang appeared in the sky, overlooking the simple, majestic city. This city, composed by moving a great number of mountains, was bustling and prosperous, filled with countless citizens. The Marquis of Zhujiang flew into the city, invisible to the ordinary guards, and silently reached a cave mansion within. Brother Yang Yu, the Marquis of Zhujiang said with a slight bow. The door to the cave house opened, and an old servant spoke, Marquis of Zhujiang, please. The Marquis of Zhujiang immediately entered and, inside an attic of the cave mansion, a four-armed man was sitting there carving a city model, his carving blade leaving secret patterns onto the model. As he carved the model, identical secret patterns appeared out of thin air on the city walls of the large Lake Island city. The Marquis of Zhujiang smiled as he watched from the side. After a long time, the four-armed man put down the carving knife and looked towards the Marquis of Zhujiang. What's the matter? Brother Yang Yu's skill in array formations is simply astonishing. Within the entire land of origin, there are very few in the primal chaos realm who can match you, the Marquis of Zhujiang flattered. It's nothing, the four-armed man replied, a hint of a smile on his face. Just say what you are here for. Brother Yang Yu is aware that my fief borders Marquis Liu Yin's, the Marquis of Zhujiang said, shaking his head. Marquis Liu Yin is too domineering. He has now sent troops to snatch my entire Zhujiang primal chaos prefecture. I'm no match for him, so I had to seek help. That's quite pitiful, the four-armed man nodded. Brother Yang Yu, if you help me, you only need to speak up, and Marquis Liu Yin will surely retreat obediently, the Marquis of Zhujiang suggested, although he's fierce and domineering, he wouldn't dare to offend you. The four-armed man shook his head. If I intervene, but Marquis Liu Yin doesn't give me face, then wouldn't that be awkward? He wouldn't dare, the Marquis of Zhujiang insisted. Brother Yang Yu, you are a direct disciple of the Emperor, he wouldn't dare to disrespect you. Emperor is a special title, only granted to the supreme rulers of past generations of the Flame-Wind ancient country. Every emperor possesses unfathomably powerful strength, and the Flame-Wind ancient country's reputation has been personally forged by these emperors over generations. Apart from the Thunder ancient country, no other power would dare to provoke an emperor. Even the pinnacle sector beast of the Tianmu kingdom would be eradicated if it challenged an emperor. A direct disciple of an emperor, nostalgia flickered in the four-armed man's eyes. Being taken as a direct disciple by an emperor in the Flame-Wind ancient country was his most dazzling moment. Back then, he was ambitious and even envisioned himself becoming a godly king one day. But as endless eons passed, he became more insignificant. Ultimately, he chose to leave the Flame-Wind ancient country and establish a city on this secluded lake, living there alone. Among the direct disciples, I'm the weakest. At the peak of the primal chaos realm, the four-armed man said with self-mockery, I'm not even confident I can defeat Marquis Liu Yin head-on. Zhujiang, I can't help you. In his agitation, the Marquis of Zhujiang pleaded, Brother Yang Yu, are you so concerned about a mere Marquis Liu Yin? Without a fight, how can you know if you can't defeat him? Without a fight, how can you become stronger? The four-armed man's expression darkened. Leave now. The Marquis of Zhujiang felt the world around him shift, and when his vision cleared, he found himself already back in the Zhujiang primal chaos prefecture. With such a high-level mastery of arrays, I don't believe Marquis Liu Yin can defeat you. It's a pity, you're just too timid. Everyone who comes to ask for your help, you refuse to leave the city, the Marquis of Zhujiang lamented. Watching the city model in front of him, the four-armed man picked up the carving knife and continued his work. When I become a godly king, that will be the time for my return, Yang Yu thought, looking at the city which was his most dedicated work. When this large city was carved to perfection, that would be the moment of his ascension as a godly king. Having become a primal chaos realm cultivator, Luo Feng only left a divine power incarnation outside while his true body was engaged in dedicated cultivation within the Star Tower. Reaching my current realm, I have come to realize the shortcomings of the two lineages I've inherited, Luo Feng sighed softly. My mentor, the mountain-sitting guest, did not bestow upon me a godly king-level inheritance. Clearly, my mentor did not think I was suited to follow the path of artifact refining. The Duandong River lineage, however, my third-generation ancestor did leave behind 3 godly king-level inheritances, Duan Mie, Dong Hua, and Undying River, but all these were paths that the ancestor himself had tread. What I need is a godly king-level inheritance in the law of life and the path of destruction. For an eternal true God, the pursuit is to master the laws of primal chaos, Luo Feng thought, so choosing any few inheritances would be very suitable for oneself. But for beings in the primal chaos realm, they have already mastered the law of primal chaos, and what they need next is to comprehend the origin Great Tao. Luo Feng sensed the heavens and the earth. He could glimpse the many origin Great Taos faintly hidden behind the chaos. These origin Great Taos, combined, form the supreme rules. The supreme rules dictate the operations of the entire world. A suitable godly king-level inheritance, I don't have a single one, Luo Feng had no choice. If it were another top eternal true God, faced with the recruitment of the monarch of Yu country, they probably would have submitted to apprenticeship long ago. With the monarch of Yu country's status, he could grant his disciple a suitable godly king-level inheritance. My godly king-level inheritance can only rely on Emperor Chu's lineage of the Flame-Wind ancient country for now, Luo Feng considered. Now that I have become a primal chaos realm cultivator, I wonder whether Emperor Chu Yu has made a breakthrough. He needs to break through before he can recruit me as a guest elder. Luo Feng calmed his mind and refrained from overthinking. Without a suitable godly king-level inheritance, I can only begin with some suitable inheritances for Primal Chaos Realm cultivators for the time being. The Primal Chaos Great Strength diagram demands increasingly higher artifact refining skills as it progresses, and the resources needed for the fourth refinement of my perfect divine body will also be incredibly vast. I'm too poor, I simply can't afford the cultivation. Luo Feng had already half given up on this technique. On the one hand, the upper limit of this inheritance is not high. After all, it's only a technique at the level of the Primal Chaos Realm. On the other hand, the demands for artifact refining skills are too high. At the stage of an eternal true god, with my talent and guidance from Shong Qianyang to resolve my confusions, I was still able to achieve 3 body refinements. But at the stage of the Primal Chaos Realm, the artifact refining skills undergo a qualitative change, and I don't plan to spend too much effort on it. Another key point is that the resource requirements are far too great. The resources I struggle to earn should be spent on Emperor Chu's lineage of the Flame-Wind ancient countries' inheritances instead, as good steel should be used on the edge of the knife. The world-breaking 9 blades is worth practicing for a longer period, as this blade technique is also in the direction of the path of destruction. It's a pity that it's only a technique at the Primal Chaos Realm level. Luo Feng put some effort into studying it. The world-breaking 9 blades in the Primal Chaos Realm consist only of 3 blades. They are Primal Chaos Blade, Heaven and Earth Blade, and World-Breaking Blade. The final style, World-Breaking Blade, seeks to break through all spatial layers, utterly shattering the entire world, creating a crack in the braided cage. Unfortunately, the world-breaking blade can only break through most of the spatial layers, and still can't break the cage. The entire technique, world-breaking 9 blades, can only represent the creator's pursuit. Even for a godly king, breaking the braided cage is not an easy task. Luo Feng continued his meticulous research. Having reached the Primal Chaos Realm, even the space of inheritance from the Duandong River lineage is of little help. This inheritance space primarily aims to cultivate disciples into eternal true gods. It would already be a miracle to cultivate a Primal Chaos Realm cultivator. As for going even higher, the space of inheritance only offers some information and guidelines. Inside the city owner's mansion, in the villa where Luo Feng resided, Morosa was eating roasted meat, and looking at Moyu Qingyang not far away, he couldn't help but curse, "How can you be so foolish? Not even the basic laws do you comprehend yet. Compared to your master, your talent is lacking by who knows how many times." "I dare not compare myself to my master," Moyu Qingyang could not help but say. "Actually, I'm only one step away from the time law now, and within these more than 30 epochs of time, nearly grasping the 10 fundamental laws, I think that's not too bad." "Shut your mouth." Morosa scolded angrily. "Don't you think about how much effort I've put into teaching you? The time law alone, how many times have I explained it to you? It must have been over 10,000 times, right? You fool." Moyu Qingyang quietly listened. He was very grateful to Lord Luo Sa in his heart. After all, his master had not given him guidance for over 30 epochs, but Lord Luo Sa had patiently guided him time and again. Only recently did he learn that Lord Luo Sa was also a powerful eternal true god, even stronger than Commander Mo Li Xiao and Shui Yun, a protector of his master. That such a strong person would provide him with long-term careful guidance, Moyu Qingyang was very touched. Usually, a mentor would not be so dedicated. In his heart, Moyu Qingyang had already begun to regard Morosa as his mentor. Crunch, crunch, an irritated Morosa quickly devoured the roasted meat. "Morosa, come in." Luo Feng communicated telepathically and then moved Morosa into the Star Tower. Naturally, Morosa offered no resistance. Inside the Star Tower. "Master, did you call for me?" Morosa chuckled. "In front of Moyu Qingyang, I can hit and scold as I wish, but in front of the master, I must be cautious and humble. I want to see just how big a gap there is between me, a newly advanced Primal Chaos Realm cultivator, and you, a deeply cultivated Primal Chaos Realm cultivator," Luo Feng said. "To compare with me." Morosa couldn't help but say, "Master, you've only recently made your breakthrough, and your godly body is still far from the limit. Such a big gap, why compare?" "I know I can't win, I just want to feel the gap," Luo Feng said. Upon reflection, Morosa said, I won't burn any divine power or use any primal chaos realm moves, and I'll just rely on my body to compare with the master. This way, I should be able to exercise about 10% of my strength. If divine power were to be burned, his strength would soar by several times over. And if he were to use secret techniques, there would naturally be an increase. All right. Luo Feng showed no mercy. With an outstretched hand, the blood shadow knife appeared in his palm. Boom. Luo Feng executed an all-out burning of divine power with Duan Mie, utilizing the skills of the primal chaos laws that he was still capable of learning. It was just that the more advanced techniques were beyond his ability to master. Come on, come at me, Morosa confidently beckoned. In an instant, Luo Feng swung out a primal chaos blade light, which even severed the operation of the primal chaos laws within the area covered by the blade technique. The primal chaos laws were already cleaved apart, opening up a deep, dark rift that cut through several layers of space. This strike was also the first blade of the world-breaking 9 blades within the primal chaos realm, the primal chaos blade. This blade, based on the primal chaos laws and containing some mysteries of the destruction origin, was still rather elementary. Luo Feng had managed to master it after spending just a little time on it. But the second and third blades of the sequence were far beyond Luo Feng's current accumulations in the field of destruction, making them much harder to practice. Fart. Morosa reached out with his plump hand and forcefully resisted Luo Feng's strike. His palm's skin slightly indented, effortlessly dissipating the power of the blade. Master, that's quite powerful. If it were twice as strong, it might injure me, Morosa shouted. That shouldn't be the case, Luo Feng said, puzzled as he sheathed his knife. Why have you stopped, master? Morosa asked in confusion. Luo Feng shook his head. I haven't broken through for long. That strike was the maximum strength I could muster. Morosa blinked. He had already said there was no need for a sparring match, but the master insisted on proceeding. Now that the master is somewhat embarrassed, would he take it out on him? That shouldn't be the case, Luo Feng couldn't help but say. Although my godly body is far from reaching its limit, my divine power is quite pure, surpassing that of a normal primal chaos realm cultivator. This blade with maximum burning of divine power, how could it not even break your skin? If Morosa used a body protection secret method or burned divine power, Luo Feng would find it quite normal not to be able to break through his skin. But to not even break it with a mere 10% of strength. Would that mean that even if Luo Feng grew to his limit, he would only barely be able to injure Morosa? Well, that's because, Morosa began to explain, I'm not a normal cultivator, I'm a sector beast. My body naturally trains to be incredibly resilient, far surpassing any body refinement technique the master has. That's why the master couldn't break my skin. Morosa had always looked down on the master's body refinement methods. Far surpassing my body refinement methods? Luo Feng could understand. After all, Morosa was a being born with a complete grasp of the destruction origin, so it stood to reason that his body training method would surpass the primal chaos great strength diagram. With no precious materials consumed, how do you refine your body? Luo Feng inquired. Master, what is body refinement? Morosa looked at Luo Feng. For instance, the most basic unit of your cultivator's bodies is divine power. For sector beasts, it is the power of sector beasts. How to more efficiently combine divine power to greatly enhance defense, strength, and speed, that is called body refinement. There's more than one method for divine power to combine more efficiently. The so-called refinement of the godly body as if it were a weapon secret treasure is merely one path. Morosa looked at Luo Feng. I don't need resources. I just need to alter the structure formed by the power of sector beasts in accordance with the enlightenment from the origin of destruction to naturally make the entire body stronger. However, this method is not suitable for you, Master. I am a sector beast, containing a realm within my body. This is the body refinement method that nurtures realms. Morosa explained. Luo Feng then understood. Indeed. The essence of body training is making divine power combine more efficiently. And treating it as an artifact refining is just one of the paths. Let me have a look at your method, Luo Feng requested. Sure. Morosa extended his hand, strands of power of sector beast flew out, beginning to combine, But even if you watch, master, you won't be able to practice it. This body refinement method is based on the core of a realm. The seemingly common power of Sector Beast combined intricately, and such structure was so beautiful that Luo Feng marveled at it. Just like many grains of sand combined to form a weapon capable of tearing through the starry sky. Changing the most fundamental structure eventually makes the whole body very strong. This process doesn't require consuming massive resources, merely a combination of the power of Sector Beast. This is much more sophisticated than refining the body into a secret treasure. Marvelous, Luo Feng exclaimed. I've heard that some ancient godly kings had unfathomably mysterious godly bodies. They probably did it in a similar way. Morosa's such fine body refinement techniques had only been a subject of hearsay to Luo Feng. His master, mountain sitting guest, and those of the Duandong River lineage, also only had some records about such inheritance, which was considered very precious even among the godly king-level inheritances. This path is one I can try. Luo Feng felt instinctively that he could replicate Morosa's Sector Beast power structure to a degree of 70 to 80%. The main issue was his lack of a realm and not being as advanced in the path of destruction as Morosa. But as a perfect divine body, with the ability to be formless and intangible, he could transform at will, even divine power into the power of Sector Beast. He could fully mimic and learn, drawing experience from it. Luo Feng extended his hand, and strands of Sector Beast power appeared, quickly combining to form a seemingly perfect structure. Morosa looked on in surprise. His master's divine power could also transform into the power of Sector Beast, which Morosa had long known. But this body refinement breakthrough had only been achieved by him after a long period in the primal chaos realm. It looks similar on the surface, but there are some differences inside, Morosa observed carefully and said. A miss is as good as a mile. Luo Feng nodded. My realm in the destruction of the origin is not as good as yours. I can't mimic it perfectly. Only by fully understanding the composition of a substance can one transform perfectly. Otherwise, one could only disguise its surface at most. For example, he had seen a godly king up close. The surface disguise could be very similar, but the internal differences were vast. Moreover, it lacks realm. The realm within your body is the core of the body refining method. It's the key to why your body is so strong. Luo Feng shook his head, knowing that no matter how he transformed, he could not produce a realm. Luo Feng looked at the structure of Sector Beast power floating above his palm. It seems perfect, but in reality, it is unstable and could collapse at any moment. Morosa watched from the side. He couldn't assist his master. His growth came from eating and drinking naturally. The thought of researching secret techniques gave him a headache. You can go about your business. Luo Feng waved his hand, sending Morosa away. Luo Feng was alone, silently observing the floating structure of Sector Beast power before him. It was so beautiful. The body refining method that Morosa, a darling of destruction origin, had mastered, was perhaps considered among the very top of its class across the entire land of origin. Buzz. Luo Feng extended his hand to disperse the Sector Beast power structure and began to form it with divine power. The divine power formed an identical structure, but it seemed so strange. No, this is completely wrong. Luo Feng shook his head. Alone inside Star Tower, Luo Feng attempted to modify, simplify, and integrate his ideas, using all means but failing to come up with a stable divine power structure. With insufficient realm, relying on mere imitation to research a set of body refining methods is indeed wishful thinking, Luo Feng said with a light smile, dispersing the dozen or so divine power structures in the air. I will need to accumulate enough realm and then explore slowly. Luo Feng looked toward the distance. In the corner of this layer of space, a small space was sealed off, where 15 primal chaos layer creatures were flying joyfully. As long as they were fed a sufficient amount of primal chaos crystals, they lived carefree lives. In the past, Luo Feng often observed primal chaos layer creatures, but after breaking through to the primal chaos realm, their value to him had diminished. A thought struck Luo Feng. Primal chaos layer creatures, their structure is incredibly simple, and I have studied them many times. Luo Feng pondered, I can try to transform. The formless and intangible ability of the perfect life form had failed on Morosa's body refining method, But now Luofeng had his sights set on the primal chaos layer creatures. Transform. Luofeng pointed his finger. Immediately a silver droplet formed. This silver droplet was incredibly stable. I understand the primal chaos laws. This silver droplet creature is the one I have studied the most, and it is originally formed from droplets of silver. Luofeng revealed a smile. Primal chaos divine power surged, and one after another silver droplet formed. A total of 120 silver droplets floated. Luofeng smiled as he watched, but gradually his brows furrowed. This is wrong. They can't fuse. Luofeng tried to touch the silver droplets together, but they still couldn't merge. A real silver droplet creature would actively fuse together, and its power would undergo a qualitative change. But why can't these silver droplets I transformed merge? Why can't they merge? Luofeng pondered. Could it be that I haven't thoroughly researched their essence? To fully understand is to perfectly transform. In the epoch of the primordial cosmos, he had confirmed his capability of formless and intangible. This silver droplet has a relatively simple structure. What else have I not seen through? Luofeng beckoned with his hand, and immediately captured the longest silverlight creature formed from 1091 silver droplets. In front of Luofeng, now in the primal chaos realm, this silverlight creature had no ability to resist. It was rapidly split into a silver droplet. Whoosh! With a gentle swipe of Luofeng's finger, the silver droplet was sliced apart, dissolving into silver mist and visualized primal chaos laws. This silver mist is just a condensed form of chaotic power. This visualization of the primal chaos laws. Luofeng's expression changed, as he immediately noticed the issue. Previously, as an eternal true God, he determined at a glance that this was a visualization of the primal chaos laws. But now, having grasped the primal chaos laws and become part of the primal chaos realm, he recognized the problem. This is indeed a visualization of the primal chaos laws, containing the characteristics of primal chaos gold and water of primal chaos. But it has a hint of spirituality, Luofeng realized. He had simply copied the primal chaos laws visualization he understood directly. Yet in reality, the primal chaos laws visualization within the silver droplets seemed alive. As if it had come alive. Possessing spirituality of primal chaos laws? Luofeng's complexion changed slightly. In the land of origin region of the primordial cosmos, an incarnation of Luofeng's divine power headed straight for the primordial cosmos. The primordial cosmos, at the source ground, that core location. Great Tao of life origin. Luofeng had come here again, looking up at the towering Great Tao of life origin. It had different aspects, and from different perspectives, it appeared differently. After grasping the primal chaos laws, Luofeng felt that understanding the Great Tao of life origin seemed not so difficult anymore. My previous realm was too weak. I actually thought that silver droplet creatures contained only the complete primal chaos laws. I was wrong, so wrong. Luofeng, facing the vast Great Tao of life origin, knew he was mistaken. This endless twisting dragon before him could be viewed from various angles, and one could also see a winding dragon bone connecting the whole body. The information contained within this winding dragon bone allowed Luofeng to vaguely see flowers blooming, fuzzy creatures breaking out of their shells. An ancient tree that had lived for countless years, one day, suddenly cultivated spirituality. It came alive and became a plant life. The spirit of life is the starting point of life. A touch of the spirit of life can even bring a stubborn stone to life, turning it into a rock-type creature. Silver droplet creatures don't have a clear consciousness, they can't think or communicate. But the essence of their life is very high, Luofeng pondered. Even the most basic element of their life structure, a silver droplet, contains life spirituality. Like humans, like many animals. In their blood, bones, muscles, and so on, there is no spirituality. Only when a soul merges with the body does it count as a life. Without a soul, it is just a walking corpse. Even true gods of void space, eternal true gods, each one is like this. The soul is fundamental. Some plant life cultivate a bit of spirituality from the whole plant. Whereas silver droplet creatures, each silver droplet of theirs contains life spirituality. This makes the life that finally comes together extraordinarily powerful. I originally thought its core was just the complete primal chaos laws. Now I know, its core is the primal chaos laws merged with the spirit of life. It's just that the spirituality isn't particularly high. Luo Feng looked at the dragon bone of this endless coiling dragon before him. Facing the origin of life, Luo Feng understood how terrifying it could be if the life spirituality were strong enough. A touch of spirituality can animate a stubborn rock. If every drop of divine power contained spirituality, how terrifying would that be? If it harbors strong spirituality, each portion of divine power would seem to come alive, fundamentally transforming. The strength, speed, and resilience of the godly body could soar rapidly. The godly body itself would become immensely powerful, virtually unshakable, Luo Feng thought, and, if willing, each part of my divine power could develop its own consciousness, capable of giving birth to a new life. A single drop of my blood, guided by my will, can form another strong and vivid life. These vibrant lives are limited by the amount of power I bestow upon them. The more divine power I bestow, the larger this independent life becomes. If I were a godly king, I could differentiate my flesh and blood, and perhaps create thousands of primal chaos realm incarnations. Luo Feng mused, the flesh and blood I can divide are parts of my godly body. If I divide it out, I too would become weakened. The pathway of life spirituality. The so-called animating life, creating powerful incarnations are merely auxiliary uses. For those who have become godly kings along this path, their godly bodies are the most terrifying. Their godly bodies are an upgraded version of the silver droplet creatures. Parts of their flesh and blood can be condensed to form weapons. Destroying them is as difficult as destroying Emperor-level secret treasure weapons. With my humble realm, I can only glimpse a part of the path of life spirituality. Luo Feng looked at the endless coiling dragon before him. Perhaps there are other terrifying aspects. That ancestral god of the snow realm had mastered one of the branches of the great Tao of life origin. Its ability to preserve life reached an unbelievable extent. Despite immense sins, it still lives to this day. The great Tao of life origin has many branches. The more branches you master, the more terrifying you become. If you can merge many branches into one, mastering the complete great Tao of life origin, Luo Feng gazed up at the towering endless coiling dragon. An existence that has mastered the full great Tao of life origin is just like this endless winding dragon. Such a being is the embodiment of the concept of life itself. Life spirituality. Luo Feng sat cross-legged, carefully observing the vast origin great Tao, studying the dragon bone of the endless coiled dragon. Luo Feng knew his realm was shallow. He was only researching some information similar to the spirituality of the silver droplet creatures. When he could perfectly change the silver droplet creatures, it would represent a small achievement on the path of life spirituality. Days went by. In Luo Feng's eyes, there was only that dragon bone containing endless spiritual information, continuously absorbing the information. The more he understood, the deeper his understanding of the spirituality of the silver droplet creatures. Only time would tell how long it had been. I should be able to change it now. Luo Feng, with a certain level of understanding of life spirituality, naturally gained confidence. A layer of space within the star tower. Luo Feng sat cross-legged, stretched out his hand and gently tapped, and a wisp of divine power transformed, bringing forth a droplet of silver liquid. This droplet of silver was an absolute spherical shape, its surface marked with traces of the primal chaos laws, imbued with the rhythm of life. It was like adding the finishing touch to a dragon in Earth's mythological stories. Once it contained life spirituality, the essence of this silver droplet had completely transformed. How magical, Luo Feng observed as the silver droplet flowed in his palm. After fully comprehending the essence of the silver droplets, Luo Feng found that his consciousness naturally merged with them as he created them with the formless and intangible ability of the perfect divine body. The silver droplet felt like it was a part of his own body. That's right, even though silverlight creatures have extremely low intelligence, they are capable of feelings like joy, anger, attack, and so on. This silver droplet is capable of carrying consciousness, albeit an extremely weak one. Luo Feng waved his hand. A mass of primal chaos divine power flew out, transforming into thousands of silver droplets. Each of the silver droplets possessed spirituality. Upon manifesting, they instinctively sought to merge. Just like how human fingers naturally work together, these silver droplets naturally combined. This is a successfully transformed silver droplet. Luo Feng smiled. To carry consciousness and merge naturally were the abilities of the silver droplets. Thousands of silver droplets merged together, akin to numerous parts forming one complete machine, the power instantly undergoing a qualitative leap. They easily transformed into various weapons: silver blade light, silver sword light, silver long sticks, silver nets. Just in terms of strength and speed, it's already comparable to Yong Hu of the unlimited godly bodies. It is only that the moves are somewhat clumsy. Luo Feng continued to sprinkle divine power and produced a large number of silver droplets. The silver droplets kept converging, 3,000, 5,000, however, there was no significant change in power. When they accumulated to 10,000, they formed a stream of silver liquid. The might of this stream of silver liquid rose again. This silverlight creature is indeed peculiar, capable of continuous quality changes through accumulation. Luo Feng, curious, continued to produce a massive amount of silver droplets. 100,000, million, yet the power showed no obvious changes. Luo Feng painstakingly transformed silver droplets, and each one embodied weak life spirituality. Even such weak spirituality required some thought for Luo Feng. From initially producing thousands at a time, he grew more adept until he could create millions with a wave of his hand. Finally, when the count reached 100 million, another qualitative change occurred. Boom tilde tilde tilde. A silver river hung in the void. 100 million droplets perfectly merged into a whole. Even for me to destroy it would take some effort. Luo Feng swiped a hand across the silver river. The silver river was incredibly resilient and merely trembled slightly, dispersing. It's comparable to a newly advanced primal chaos realm being. Of course, it was only comparable to the strength of normal moves. Once a newly advanced primal chaos realm being burned its divine power at its limit to fight desperately, increasing its power by several folds, it could still suppress this silver river. Can it continue to merge? Luo Feng tried. 200 million, 300 million, 1 billion. Luo Feng was patient because the last qualitative change was from 10,000 to 100 million, a multiplier of 10,000 times. As Luo Feng transformed again and again, his understanding of the silver droplets deepened, and the quantity he could change increased more and more. In a sweep, he could produce tens of millions, hundreds of millions, even up to 1 billion droplets. But the silver river still showed no qualitative change. 1 trillion droplets. 2 trillion. As a cultivator who had practiced for endless eons, Luo Feng was not in a hurry. Even if just to deepen his understanding of life spirituality, he continued to produce massive quantities of droplets. Finally, when he accumulated to the level of 10 quintillion droplets, the originally vast and scattered silver river naturally united to form a perfect whole. Whoosh 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 tilde 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 tilde. A broad silver river, hundreds of kilometers long, flowed mightily within the Star Tower. The strength of it amazed Luo Feng. Go! The mighty silver river suddenly thinned, transforming into a silver blade light tens of thousands of kilometers long. This was also its normal state. At this moment, it can be large or small. Luo Feng felt in the depths of his being that it was utterly perfect. Small, it could fit within the palm of a hand. Large, it could span across heaven and earth. It also far surpasses the previous might. Luo Feng felt that after another leap in toughness, strength, and speed, even with clumsy moves, it could be comparable to the casual moves of an ordinary primal chaos realm being. Ordinary primal chaos realm beings represented the most basic strength of the primal chaos realm. Those who've just broken through, they tend to lie low like Luo Feng is currently doing, cultivating combat secret techniques, life-saving secret laws, body-refining secret techniques and so on, beginning to solidify their strength in all aspects. Normally, those who roam about, ordinary primal chaos realm beings are the weakest. Such cases are rare, perhaps 1 in 10 primal chaos realm beings is at this lowest level. Because beings of the primal chaos realm have infinite lifespans, even if they are part of a bloodline cultivation system, they usually attain the middle layer of the Primal Chaos Realm standard given enough accumulation. For a Primal Chaos Realm being with an unlimited godly body, once the godly body grows to its limit, that being is at the middle layer standard of the Primal Chaos Realm. If they go on to cultivate some powerful secret techniques and their realm accumulates, their abilities improving in all aspects, only then can they be considered at the top of the Primal Chaos Realm. The pinnacle of the Primal Chaos Realm is quite impressive indeed. Marquis of Zhujiang is one such being. One step further. To touch the edge of the godly king, to master more than 99% of a branch of origin Great Tao, leaving only the final breakthrough as the bottleneck. With such strength, one could be considered at the pinnacle of Primal Chaos Realm. Marquis Liu Yin is at this level. Under normal circumstances, the pinnacle of Primal Chaos Realm is the strongest level for many second-rate and third-rate countries of Primal Chaos Realm beings. Only under special circumstances, such as Primal Chaos Realm beings from the two ancient countries who have cultivated secret laws surpassing that of Godly King secret techniques, like Luofeng's Lai Yuan technique which also exceeds the Godly King secret techniques. The elite of the Primal Chaos Realm from these ancient countries surely have a few who can transcend the pinnacle of Primal Chaos Realm. The Silver River of 108 trillion droplets finally has the strength of an ordinary creature of the Primal Chaos Realm with a simple wave of the hand. Normal creatures of the Primal Chaos layer indeed have clumsy moves and low intelligence. However, this is created by me, and it is my consciousness that controls it. My realm is certainly not considered low, Luofeng revealed a smile. With a single thought. A vast expanse of silver blade light appeared in the air, carrying terrifying high speed. It instantly cut through the operation of the primal chaos laws, tearing apart numerous spatial layers, and created a black spatial ravine. Ordinary beings of the primal chaos realm could only manage so much with a full strength blow using all their might to burn divine power, I suppose, Luofeng thought. It also matches about 2 to 3 times the power of my previous all-out effort. Can it continue to stack up? Although he felt it was perfect, Luofeng still continued to try. Now with one gesture, he could create hundreds of millions of silver droplets. The number continued to increase. Luofeng treated it as a form of cultivation. Even though the perfect divine body had not grown to its limit, it was still quite immense. Luofeng naturally could transform into a vast number of silver droplets. Every 108 trillion droplets of silver blade light, he regarded as one unit. Luofeng transformed half of his current godly body into silver droplet. He had transformed into 1.2 billion units of silver blade light, but these silver droplets could no longer fuse together or undergo qualitative change. It seems that they cannot undergo further qualitative change, Luofeng realized. At this moment, a vast silver ocean appeared within this level of space in the Star Tower, with Luofeng sitting cross-legged atop this vast silver ocean. This was the silver ocean formed by the gathering of 1.2 billion units of silver blade light. These silver droplets have a few flaws, the first being that they very easily get hungry, and they can't absorb power from heaven and earth. They must rely on chaotic power, primal chaos crystals, or even more pure primal chaos divine power, Luofeng pondered. Fortunately, my miniature universe supplies endless primal chaos divine power at all times. Maintaining these silver rivers is fairly easy. The second flaw is that they are not divine power and can't drive weapon secret treasures. If ordinary body refining methods are just about divine power exerting its might more efficiently, fundamentally, it is still divine power. But when Luofeng transformed divine power into silver droplets, even the most basic unit was completely changed. From divine power into the form of silver droplets. Silver droplets can't autonomously absorb the power of heaven and earth, can't drive weapon secret treasures, and can't even burn like divine power. The third flaw is that they can't burn like divine power. Their normal state's power is already their limit, Luofeng thought to himself. Creatures of the primal chaos layer still have quite a few weaknesses. But all of these weaknesses cannot cover up their advantages. Luofeng was excited. A single unit of silverlight creature performing the primal chaos blade is comparable to an ordinary being of primal chaos realm at the limit of burning divine power in a strike. What about 10 units then? With a single thought from Luo Feng, the immense silver ocean flew out with indeed 10 streaks of blade light. 10 streaks of blade light performed the same primal chaos blade, the might terrifying, as if 10 ordinary beings of the primal chaos realm were desperately burning divine power. For me, I need to divide my attention and multitask. My spiritual will is strong enough now, and my soul is strong enough, and the primal chaos blade is quite a simple move. Luo Feng tried it out. In mid-air, streaks of blade light rose up, continuously practicing the primal chaos blade. The Star Tower was extraordinarily stable, allowing Luo Feng to practice his moves to his heart's content. Eventually, a total of 300 streaks of blade light rose. 300 streaks of silver blade light, each one immense, each performing the primal chaos blade. As if 300 ordinary beings in primal chaos realm were giving their all in a full-strength strike, the might was already startling to Luo Feng. Boom tilde 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 tilde. Even if the skill level was low, the combined might of 300 streaks of silver blade light forcibly tore through a dense multitude of spatial layers. I have discovered a new body refining root, the law of transformation. Transforming into a myriad of forms, possessing the traits of special creatures, Luo Feng was very excited. Of course, this transformation method was unique to him. The ability to be formless and intangible was what made Luo Feng's divine power so easily transformable. The law of transformation is not a single Tao. Luo Feng faced the great Tao of life origin directly and understood this clearly. The ultimate form for a body should be understanding the profound rules that make the godly body powerful, as if one's very self is the convergence of the entire Tao. I am currently only in the primal chaos realm, and I haven't even grasped a branch of the Tao. A lot is lacking to seek the ultimate. Luo Feng was self-aware. In the early stages before mastering the complete Tao, being able to transform in endless ways holds many advantages and helps in contemplating the Tao. With a thought from Luo Feng, he teleported Morosa into the Star Tower. Master, Morosa looked at his master eagerly. Morosa, let's have another sparring match, Luo Feng said to Morosa with a smile. Morosa was stunned. Another sparring session? Previously, even the master's full-strength blow could not break the skin of his palm. That was when he had completely restrained his own power. Master, why don't we wait until your godly body has grown to its limit before we spar? Morosa couldn't help but say, the gap was too large. There was no point in sparring, one could stand there and let the master hit without breaking the skin. Right now, Luo Feng said. If the master demands, then let's have the contest. Morosa had no choice. Who asked for the master to be the master? Master, I will not burn divine power, nor will I use any primal chaos realm moves. I will purely engage using my body, Morosa said. This way he would only exert about 10% of his strength. Luo Feng smiled and nodded. Good. As he spoke, Luo Feng waved his hand. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In the dark space of this level of the Star Tower, 300 silver blade lights hovered in the air, each about 10 meters long. Morosa, you better be ready, Luo Feng said with a smile. Bring it on, Morosa said, looking at the ordinary 300 blade lights and couldn't help muttering to himself, fancy moves, weak godly body, weak realm, no threat at all. The blade technique I am using is the Primal Chaos Blade, which is the first blade of the world-breaking 9 blades in the Primal Chaos realm, containing a hint of the aura from the great Tao of Destruction origin, Luo Feng said cheerfully. Morosa still wasn't concerned. Destruction's origin? The master's mysteries of destruction's origin were all learned from him. Boom. 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 The 300 blade lights, each formed from 180 billion silver droplets, even in their normal state are tens of thousands of kilometers long. But now, shrunken to about 10 meters, their power was intensely concentrated, making them even sharper. The world-breaking 9 blades in the primal chaos realm aimed to split open the cage. Luo Feng had watched Morosa demonstrate the mysteries of destruction's origin and had also vaguely comprehended some of the mysteries hidden between heaven and earth in the great Tao of destruction's origin. He knew that the path of destruction contained many branches. The world-breaking 9 blades pursued one of the branches of destruction's origin, the chop and split branch. This branch's name was not known to Luo Feng, it was a name he came up with himself. During his comprehension, He naturally understood the many characteristics of this branch, which sought to split everything in the universe in twain. It contained endless sharpness, aiming to split apart all hindrances. Luo Feng was ultimately a swordsman, and this branch suited his temperament well, so naturally, he spent most of his thoughts on it. At this moment, the 300 blade lights were pitilessly sharp, converging like a rolling river of blades, embodying the force of 300 ordinary primal Chaos Realm beings burning their divine power in a desperate strike. Rumbling tilde tilde tilde. Effortlessly powerful, dense masses of spatial layers were instantly destroyed, its force comparable to the final blade of world-breaking 9 blades, the world-breaking blade. At close range, Morosa was so startled that his eyes bulged, his divine power within violently burst forth, surging violently, his godly bodies might greatly increased, and then he was engulfed by the river of silver blade light. Morosa was blasted forth like a streak of flowing light, bang, slamming fiercely against the inner wall of the Star Tower. His skin was covered in numerous wounds, his bones broken in many places, his body terribly mangled, and his face horribly disfigured. The previously simple and honest face had become much uglier. He fell down from the inner wall of the Star Tower, his injuries quickly disappearing, and both his eyes returned to normal as he exclaimed in disbelief, "Master, how long has it been? You can already match my full-strength strike when I'm burning divine power? How is that possible? I've been in the primal chaos realm for more than 5 eras. My body has grown to its limit, and I still possess various secret techniques. How long has Master broken through to catch up with me?" Morosa couldn't believe it, nor could he accept it. Wasn't he naturally possessing the mysteries of destruction's origin, and now he'd been caught up to in terms of cultivation? Luo Feng watched him with a smile, 300 blades of light floating around. "I've always said, you need to understand, to learn to research," Luo Feng teased. "Understand? Study. I can't learn that," Morosa couldn't help saying. "Master, now I have to go all out." At that moment, as Morosa stood there, the surrounding void twisted, his body seemingly transforming into a dark abyss, causing everything in all directions to twist and shatter. The shattering of the void spread continually, also reaching towards Luo Feng. "Master, just because a technique is powerful doesn't mean its strong realm is also very important," Morosa said. "Oh." Luo Feng watched Morosa at that moment. Morosa himself seemed like a dark abyss, his figure becoming indistinct. Luo Feng did not hesitate. The 300 blades of light, carrying the force that split everything, also sliced toward the twisted dark endless abyss before him. This endless abyss shattered and twisted everything around, and Luo Feng's blade's force was crushed, twisted, and devoured. Most of its power was destroyed and ground up, with only a small part remaining which was swallowed by Morosa, leaving him completely unharmed this time. "Master, if your blade technique is just powerful, then its weakness is too obvious," Morosa, incarnated as the Dark Abyss, transmitted his voice. "With the increase in realm, some mighty primal chaos realm techniques are quite mysterious, and your power is likely to be mostly dissipated or redirected. As a sector beast, I am quite skilled in the art of survival. But in terms of realm, I'm far from reaching the threshold of a godly king. I'm probably inferior compared to the deeply accumulated Marquis of Zhujiang," Morosa said. He considered himself somewhat stronger than the Marquis of Zhujiang because of the foundation of a perfect life form. Just in terms of realm, after all, he had only been in the primal chaos realm for a bit more than 5 eras, without having consumed any formidable treasures or godly body, and thus naturally his grasp and understanding of the mysteries of the destruction's origin were not extensive. "I know." Luo Feng nodded. "According to the intelligence, Marquis Zhujiang can hide in the void, his body existing between the real and the illusory. Indeed, my 300 blades of light would have a hard time fully striking him. Marquis Liu Yin is even more formidable, though I can now approach his strength in terms of technique power. I estimate I can't even touch him. I admit, I'm not confident I could defeat Marquis Liu Yin." Morosa reverted to his normal appearance. After all, he is a pinnacle of the primal chaos realm existence, rumored to be able to transform into a world's disaster. In front of him, I can only say I have a chance at survival. Luo Feng smiled and said, "Morosa, don't forget, I haven't been in the primal chaos realm for long." Morosa was taken aback, and couldn't help saying, "Right, "Master, you've just reached the primal chaos realm, how come you've become so strong?" "This is a secret technique of transformation I've created using the ability of formless and intangible," Luo Feng explained. "Self-created?" Morosa was shocked, the feeling complex at this moment. This was the difference between a sector beast and a cultivator. Sector beasts naturally absorbed countless insights from the origin of destruction, and their understanding of various secret techniques was instinctive. They didn't need to contemplate or create anything on their own. Luo Feng nodded and said, "This transformation secret technique that I created myself offers immense help in terms of my godly body. Now that I've barely started, this is my current strength. 300 blade lights, they can dodge, transfer, or dissipate them. But what about 1,000 blade lights, or 3,000? Luo Feng said, "Overwhelm the many with one. Even if each blade light isn't very strong, a change in quantity causes a change in quality. Once the power accumulates to a terrifying degree, it can even split open a braided cage. Who among them could avoid it? The braided cage would be split open. Everything in the way must be annihilated. 3,000 blade lights? Master, can your power still increase tenfold?" Morosa couldn't help but ask. The great Tao of destruction origin. It was supreme power, entirely devastating everything. As a pet of the destruction origin, Morosa knew very well how unimaginable it was when such absolute power reached a certain level. Sweep across everything. Destroy everything. Space-time, worlds, causality, and all else must be shattered. Before absolute destruction, there was no need to consider any entanglement of causality, no need to mind any schemes, and it could even level the entire world. That pinnacle sector beast comprehends the complete great Tao of destruction origin. Yet, it's merely a sector beast of the first-rate Tianmu kingdom. It doesn't even dare to unleash a catastrophe. It seems that the foundation of the two ancient countries cannot be compared to the complete great Tao of destruction origin. Morosa, understanding the power of the destruction origin, was increasingly aware of the terror of the two ancient countries. His master was willing to become a guest elder in the line of Emperor Chu of the Flame-Wind ancient country, and Morosa was also willing. The stronger his master became, the safer he would be. "I employ the lineage of life origin to perfect the law of transformation," Luo Feng nodded. "Then, I use the lineage of the destruction origin to execute my blade technique. 300 blade lights are just the beginning." Luo Feng was not hiding anything in front of Morosa. Because his current realm was quite low, the primal chaos blade was his strongest blade technique, and it required considerable effort to use. At this moment, the fact that he could control 300 blades was purely because the soul of his perfect divine body was strong enough, and his spiritual will was at the godly king level, which allowed him to forcefully control so many blade lights. As his godly body continued to grow and the soul nurtured within it became stronger, the number of blade lights he could control would increase. Most importantly, as his realm improved, Luo Feng's execution of the blade technique would become easier and his consumption of heart force would reduce. Naturally, he would be able to perform more techniques. "Master, your transformation law is already so formidable just at the introductory stage. If it continues to grow, its potential is indeed enormous," admired Morosa. "This method is merely in its embryonic form." Luo Feng also acknowledged this fact. Even the primal chaos layer creatures that he had collected on his own consisted of 6 types, and he had only studied one so far. The law of transformation naturally involves the study of multiple transformations. Draw upon their strengths. Moreover, there are also some creatures in the primal chaos layer that naturally possess primal chaos realm strength. These are much more powerful than the silverlight creatures, and have been captured alive by some major powers. Luo Feng believed that the Flame-Wind ancient country had also captured some, and he planned to study 1 or 2 of them when possible. The creation and perfection of the law of transformation, the strengthening of the soul and spiritual will, and the ascension of realm. All these improvements would enhance his power. Luo Feng vaguely saw. The path of the law of transformation is one where he could break laws with force, using absolute power to destroy everything. Perhaps during his phase in the primal chaos realm, he might hope to split open the braided cage. Of course, Luo Feng did not dare to hope for too much, considering that some ancient godly kings couldn't achieve this. Go back to your tasks. Luo Feng waved his hand, moving Morosa out, and then he began to focus on his cultivation again. Entering the early stages of the primal chaos realm was a period of rapid strength enhancement, and Luo Feng wanted to devote himself to seclusion. Morosa was moved out, but he felt somewhat unpleasant. Previously, the master could only defeat me by using the secret technique of willpower. But now, it seems, he could likely defeat me in a regular fight, Morosa thought. I too must find a way to accelerate my growth. But I don't know how to study or comprehend. I need to devour some powerful godly bodies and treasures to enhance myself faster. But to obtain these godly bodies and treasures, I need the master's help. Morosa was quite troubled. As a sector beast, he had to be extremely careful during his growth stages. This land of origin was too hostile towards him as a sector beast. Displeased, Morosa decided to look for some food. Lord Luo Sa, Mo Yu Qingyang ran over. What's the matter? Morosa glanced at Mo Yu Qingyang, feeling quite annoyed at seeing this youngster whom he had painstakingly taught for over 30 years. How stupid he was, so much inferior compared to the master. His master's growth rate made even him, a natural bearer of the destruction origin, somewhat anxious. Lord Luo Sa, I've made a breakthrough. Mo Yu Qingyang was ecstatic. I've finally mastered all of the 10 fundamental laws. Upon hearing this, Morosa glanced at Mo Yu Qingyang and said, So you've mastered the 10 fundamental laws? Is such a trivial matter worth getting excited over? Mo Yu Qingyang was taken aback and immediately nodded obediently. Compared to his master and Lord Luo Sa, both of whom were incredibly strong eternal true gods, he was indeed very weak. Hurry up and get me something to eat, said Morosa. The master is in seclusion and should not be disturbed. When the master comes out of seclusion, then tell him about your breakthrough. I'll go prepare something to eat right away. Having served Morosa for so long, Mo Yu Qingyang was well aware of Morosa's preferences and immediately went to make arrangements. Morosa watched Mo Yu Qingyang run off and finally revealed a smile, feeling extremely pleased. This foolish boy has finally made a breakthrough. My own cultivation has never been this exhausting. This video will end here.